Hello, I am the eccentric Raven, and I like to bring people on eccentric adventures. I'm happy to announce the March 2026 Tic-Tac-Toe. So last year I created March Tic-Tac-Toe Reading Challenge, and so this year I'm happy to do March Tic-Tac-Toe 2.0. So this is a readathon that I've set up with different prompts to celebrate things that happen in March. March is a very special month for me, as it is my birthday month, and the birthday months for many family members. We have a lot of March birthdays in my family. And there can be different festivities in March, some of which are every year in different places in the world, and some of which might, kind of vary based on, the calendars of different cultures and phases of the moon. Some years it will be Mardi Gras, some years it will be Easter. So each year I like to have my March Tic-Tac-Toe go according to, some of the kind of holidays going on, for March in that year. So this features a lovely tic-tac-toe board with 9 different reading prompts that you can choose. So you can either do 3 in a row, or you can do all 9. It's also fine to double count or triple count if you'd like to, though it's funner if you read 9 different books. So for the prompts, the first prompt is Women's History Month. So for this one, you would read anything that could go under women's literature, and you can define that, however much you want to. So this could be like, literary women's fiction. This could be like, non-fiction biography stuff, or, you can even have it be as broad as like, a book written by a woman where main character is a woman, just as long as it keeps up with, the spirit of it. So with some of the things that I have on my pile of possibilities, so when it comes down to like, women's fiction, Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmos, which has interested me for a long time. I also have Dear Life by Alice Munro, which I've been very interested in for a long time. Nobel Prize winner. And I have here By Any Name by Cynthia Voigt, who normally writes children's literature. So this is like her first adult, women's fiction novel. And of course you can definitely put romance under this, like, both, contemporary romance, literary romance. So you can put down here like, Jane Austen, Bronte sisters. Contemporary romance that I've been interested in is Out on a Limb. Here's the book that a while ago I started the first chapter, but I need to keep on reading it. This is The Hiding Place by Corrie ten Boom. Yeah, classic, autobiography memoir about surviving the Holocaust. And here's a book that I have here by Courtney Mom, who is a book coach who gives writing advice. So this is her book Before and After the Book Deal. All right, the next prompt is birthday. So here, read any book that mentions a birthday in some way. So the birthday can be central to the plot, or it doesn't have to be. The birthday could just be mentioned in the summary. It might happen in just the first chapters, or it might not happen until much later in the book. So yeah, it's up to you on how to interpret that. So some examples include in Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring, it begins with Bilbo Baggins' 111th birthday. And going back here to The Hiding Place, the first chapter in this book actually is about, the birthday of her father, I think, if I remember right. Sorry, it's hard for me to remember things at the moment. And so the birthday actually kind of shows some of the happiness and cheer that happens, before World War II, comes upon them. And so for some of the books in my pile of possibilities, I have Parable of the Sower here by Octavia Butler. This actually begins on the main character's birthday, which is mentioned on, the first page. And here's something that's caught my interest, Ringer by Jerry Spinelli. So the description here mentions birthdays. It says, not all birthdays are welcome. So this is a boy who's actually not looking forward to his 10-year-old birthday. And I don't know why, but I'm very curious to find out. Another example too of kind of birthday-centered books would be the American Girl books. Because I know with at least with the original dolls, there would always be a book, her birthday. So way back when I was a kid, I had read up on Felicity, Kirsten, Addie, Samantha, Molly, and Josefina. Alright, next prompt is March Madness. For this one, read any book that mentions sports, games, or competitions of any sort. So in my case, there's definitely many books about games that interest me, so I love, the Hunger Games, and I could use this as the time to read The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which I wanted to get down to for some time. Another one here too on my TBR is The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. Mystery thriller. And then here's a book by the award-winning M.T. Anderson, The Game of Sunken Places. This looks like another mystery thriller book, for young adults. And a sports-themed book that I want to get down to here is called Before the Ever After by Jacqueline Woodson. Shows here on the cover how it's about where a boy sees his dad suffering from trauma from an injury. Alright, next prompt is Pie Day. So this is where we like to use puns, because Pie Day refers to baking pies. And sometimes we like to joke about how it's also a day about math because of the pi symbol. So for this one, you can either read a book that's about baking or cooking, or read a book about mathematics. And if you find one that's a combination of those, that would be pretty cool. So for some of my options here, I'm really interested in Aftertaste by Daria Lavelle. This ghost story about cooking a final meal for Ghost. And another one on my list is An Appetite for Miracles by Leica Naseya Kemp, which is about Mexican cuisine. And then for mathematics stuff, I have A Life of Pi, which I've long wanted to read. And I have The Calculating Stars by Mary Robinette Kowal, the first in her Lady Astronaut books. The cover even has some pretty cool designs, equations. And then here's the Brandon Sanderson novel, The Rhythmatist, which is like a gearpunk, steampunk story. Alright, the next prompt is my favorite one. The next prompt is St. Patrick's Day. So for this one, there's like 4 different options. You would either read a book that takes place in Ireland, or is by an Irish author, or is about Irish immigrants, or uses Irish mythology. And of course, it can be more of those. So like last year, for example, I read Artemis Fowl, which takes place in Ireland, is by an Irish author, and uses Irish mythology. So by one of my great favorite poets here, Irish Fairy Tales and Folk Tales, gathered by William Butler Yeats. And I have lots of Nora Roberts books. I have her historical fiction, The Irish Rebel, based on Irish mythology, Morrigan's Cross, and another Irish magic-themed story, Dark Witch, and contemporary fiction, Irish Hearts, which is actually 2 books. Her first novel, Irish Thoroughbred, and next one, Irish Rose. I hope it's good. Alright, next prompt is equinox. So March is when it is the spring equinox for those of us in the north, and it's also the autumn equinox for those who are below the equator. So for this prompt, you would read a book that takes place in either spring or autumn, and that can include stories that take place year-round. So I have lots of options here under my TBR. So going back to the Parable of the Sower, since this is the epistolatory taking place all year round, that includes spring. Right, and here's some young adult contemporary fiction, Invisible Sun by Kim Johnson. So this is epistolatory, and it actually takes place specifically in the spring of 2020, which all of us will remember is when COVID began. So this is a book about a young boy who's been accused for a crime he did not commit, and so he's having to deal with that while at the same time COVID is breaking out. And one that I had on my TBR last year, but I did not yet get to it, is Flash Forward by Robert Sawyer. So this is a time travel story where it happens in the month of April when the entire world experiences a blackout, and during the blackout everybody is able to see into their future. So for some autumn studying books, I have here When the English Fall by David Williams. I wanted to read this back in the fall but wasn't able to, so hopefully I'll be able to. Songs for Machine Age by Heather McDougall. Yes, this is a little known steampunk, gearpunk novel, and it says it takes place here in autumn as it mentions the Autumn Festival. It's a romance. Looks like a pretty fun story. And I read the first page, it was well written, so I'm pretty sure this one will be good. Alright, next prompt is Purim. So Purim is a Jewish holiday that celebrates the story of Queen Esther, which is one of my favorite Bible stories. And so for this prompt, you read a book by a Jewish author. And so this can be kind of broad to any kind of author who has, like, said that they have, Jewish heritage. So here's a pretty well-known award-winning author of children's and young adult books. His name is, how do you say it? Jay Potuk. Sorry, I don't know how to say it for sure. So he's written My Name is Asher Lev and The Chosen. No relation to the Christian TV show The Chosen. Another book that I have is The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. He is Brazilian, but he is of Jewish European descent. And here's a book that I meant to read in one of my university classes. This is called Scapegoat by Eli Amir. So this is a book that takes place in Israel, back at a time when Israel used to have these communes that were called kibbutzes, I think is what they were called. So another option I have here is Sholem Aleichem. He is the author of Tevye, which is what Fiddler on the Roof is based on. So this is a book that I have here that has two of his books, Tevye the Dairyman and Motel the Cantor's Son. I've already read the second one, but I still need to read Tevye. So I definitely want to see that, see where the original story of Tevye came from. So it's originally in Yiddish and translated into English. Alright, the next prompt is Holi Festival. So that is a festival in India, and I swear one of the items on my bucket list is to one day go to India during the Holi Festival and to join in with that. It's where they toss all this powder at each other. So for this prompt, you read a book by an author from India. So one that I own that goes under that is The Home in the World, a novel by Rabindranath Tagore. It's kind of hard for me to say. So Tagore was a major author of Indian literature, and he earned the Nobel Prize in Lit. And so this book was originally in Bengali, translated into English. It's considered a classic. Now, Tagore was also a poet, and there are many anthologies, of his work, and someday I'm going to get one of his books of poetry to read into that. Though I do admit that I don't know much else otherwise about Indian literature, so if any of you have any other suggestions about Indian authors to read, please feel free to share that in the comments. Alright, and then for the last prompt, daylight savings time. So here in the United States, daylight savings time begins in March, and almost all of the states use it. So for this one, read any book that has sun in either the title or on the cover. And this can also include kind of words kind of like similar to sun, such as dawn. So here's Brown Girl Dreaming by Jacqueline Woodson, which has a pretty sun here on the cover. Yes, The Sun is Also a Star by Nicola Yoon. Dawn by Octavia Butler. And another one here on my list is The Empire of the Sun by J.G. Ballard. Yeah, so this is a novel from the 1980s, and it was turned into a film by Steven Spielberg. My list also includes Sunrise on the Reaping. So if I get to read Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, then I'll be sure to read this one too. I do have more examples on my Storygraph, which is linked below. So please feel free to tell us in the comments if you're going to participate. What books do you plan on reading then? Any other suggestions that you have for any of the prompts? Or if you're not feeling chatty, you can at least leave a comment with an emoji. And how about you have the emoji be one of the clovers, either the 3-leaf clover or the 4-leaf clover for St. Patrick's Day. And please do that good stuff, like this video and subscribe, and I hope we see each other again. In the words of Kit Boga, you matter, and in the words of Brian Bacon, take love.